Welcome to the Companion Chapel Everyday Bible Study broadcast. My name is Mike, coming to you from the Great Lakes area of beautiful Ontario, Canada, on this gorgeous Thursday, March 21st, 2024, coming right up. It is the book of Acts, chapter 27. Don't you dare miss it. We're wrapping up the book of Acts. What a monumental book. There's an in-depth lesson here that will come together by the time we get to around verse 20. So we're going to read through this rather quickly. It's about a shipwreck, and let's just open the book and let it speak for itself. Now, first we had, in the last chapter 26, verse 32, Agrippa and Festus. Now we have big governmental officials here. And it's the same back then as it is today. Government officials are both unable and unwilling to fully tell the truth. Agrippa, that's the king, says unto Festus, that's like the governor, this man might have been set at liberty, talking about Paul, if he had not appealed to Caesar, which is BS, because Paul would have been killed up in Jerusalem. Paul had to appeal to Caesar to get out of Jerusalem, and God said, remember, in Acts chapter 23:11, Paul, I'm going to get you to Rome. Don't you worry about it. This is about faith here. Let's go. Verse 27, or chapter 27 and verse 1. And when it was determined that we should sail into Italy, they delivered Paul and a centurion and other prisoners unto one named Julius, a centurion of Augustus' band. Here we got the gang chain, or the prison gang chain, on the ship. And entering into the ship of Adramyttium, we launched, meaning to sail by the coast of Asia. One Artichurchus, okay, now we know him from before, Aristarchus, a Macedonian of Thessalonica, being with us also. It doesn't say if he was a prisoner or not, but he was there anyway. Say he wasn't a prisoner, but he was there. He's got Paul's back. Like he just didn't bail. Right? If he is a prisoner, well, then that's fine. He was mentioned earlier in the book of Acts as being a loyal disciple. And the next day we touched at Sidon, and Julius courteously entreated Paul and gave him liberty to go unto his friends to refresh himself. He says, okay, man, this guy's a cool jail guard. It's like, thanks, boss. He lets him go. He says, I trust Paul. Paul's not going to go anywhere. Paul's been in jail for years. You would think maybe this guy wants to split, but it's your personality, your character, your spirit, the intellect of your soul. People know an honest person right off the hop. They just deep down inside know. You start to learn body language, and you start to learn, okay, this person's, kind of, shifty. This person has, a selfish energy. This person has a scattered energy, or this person has a reckless or energy. You just know the people. They know Paul, okay? This is a man of God right here, a chosen vessel. You go ahead, Paul. Like, we're not going to, you go ahead and go refresh yourself. And when they had launched from thence, we sailed under Cyprus, because the winds were contrary. So they're having a tough time sailing here, is what's being said. And when they had sailed over the sea to Cilicia and Pamphylia, we came to Myra, a city of Lycia, and there the centurion found a ship of Alexandria sailing into Italy, and he put us there. You would think, like, why wouldn't they have like a one-way trip hooked up here? This is what I don't understand. But anyways, it's like, what are they just were they like backpacking through Europe here? It says they didn't have like a ship to go right directly to Rome, and this was the big government. Okay, so we just have to go with it. That's the way it was back then. Like, can you imagine the jail guard, going out, and he's taking the prisoners to a jail, and all of a sudden, hey, we got to find a new van, or we got to find a new bus, or we got to find, and you got all these people. That's just bizarre to me. But anyways, that's the way it was back then. And when they had sailed slowly over many days, and scarce were come over against Cnidus, the wind not suffering us, we sailed under Crete over Salome, and hardly passing it, came unto a place which is called the Fair Havens, still named Fair Havens today, where is the city of Lasea. Now, you can get a biblical dictionary, a biblical atlas, and it's really cool to see where they went, and you can, it'll help you paint a picture in your mind. I have one, I forgot to get it out, and it's really interesting. All these places still exist, some under different names, obviously. But anyway, they're trying to get Paul and these prisoners back to Rome. And now when much time was spent, and when sailing was now dangerous because the fast was now already past, Paul admonished them. What do you mean the fast was already past? We're talking about the Feast of Tabernacles. So now we're into October here, early October. And said unto them, Sirs, I perceive that this voyage will be with much hurt and much damage, not only to the lading and the ship, but also our lives. So Paul's trying to give some advice here. Okay, saying, listen, we're cruising into winter. Nevertheless, the centurion believed the master and the owner of the ship, which were probably the same dude. This is Captain Rummy looking at his charts, right? Glug, glug, glug. He believed him more than things which were spoken by Paul. Okay. And when the haven was not commodious to winter, that just means it's not a good place to camp out for the winter. The more part advised to depart thence, and if by any means they might attain to Phoenix, and there to winter, which is a haven of Crete, and lieth towards the southwest and northwest. Okay, so they're already concerned about the winter. Not just being out on a boat in the Mediterranean, but where are they going to camp out? So apply this and consider Mary, the mother of Jesus Christ, and that hoax of a story that she actually walked 70 miles in the winter, like heavy with child. That's just crazy. We know from Luke chapter 1 that when Jesus Christ's birthday was and when she did that walk, and it wasn't in winter. These people are already concerned about winter. Heavy with child through the winter? I don't think so. So we know Luke chapter 1, when Jesus Christ's birth really was September 29th. Anyways, if anybody means, okay, so they're looking for a place to stay, and when the south wind blew softly, supposing that they obtained their purpose, loosing thence, they sailed close by Crete. These are all just nautical stuff. Like, we're talking about, okay, they're trying to catch some wind here, because they don't have, a Cummins diesel with a prop on it underneath them. They have these sails, obviously. And not long after, there arose against a tempest. This is more like a typhoon wind called Eurocyclone. So I would just translate that European cyclone, because this is what we're talking about, a hurricane. This was some severe weather. And when the ship was caught and could not bear up the wind, we let her drive, and running her under a certain island, which is called Claudia. We had much work to come by the boat. These guys are scrambling. And I'll tell you right now, there's over 200 people on this boat, and they're scrambling to save this boat. And as Paul said, it had lading on it. That just means it had a lot of stuff on it, plus the people. Stuff meaning cargo. I think this ship was full of wheat or corn or something like that, some kind of grain. And when the ship was caught, running under a certain island, that's what they do up here today too. If there's a storm on the Great Lakes and you're on like a big boat, but don't call it a boat. If your dad was in the Navy, you better call it a ship. And all these nautical terms, which are just crazy, they'll hide behind an island and wait till the wind goes. Which when they were taken up, they used helps ungirding the ship, and fearing lest they should fall into quicksand, strake the sail and were driven. And we being exceedingly tossed with the tempest, the next day they lightened the ship. They're just throwing stuff overboard, in other words. You could have said that in one sentence. And the third day we cast out with our own hands the tackling of the ship, when neither sun nor stars in many days appeared, and no small tempest lay on us. All hope that we should be saved was taken away. They started to panic, okay? So we get a panic here. Now, I'm going to tell you something. Let's talk about pre-trib, mid-trib. These people, these pretentious, overfed, unconcerned people that have money in their pockets and think they don't have to go through tribulation. The only way to reinforce faith, the only way, is through affliction. Like, do you think that you'll be you pre-trib, mid-trib people? And this is said out of love. It's not pointing fingers. I don't get a feeling of empowerment telling people how ridiculously wrong they are to think like this, how the audacity to think like this. Do you think you will be admitted into paradise without being tested like those before you? They were afflicted with suffering and adversity and were so violently shaken. Throughout the Bible, we read about this over and over, that even the prophets and believers with him cried out. When will God come? When will God help us? When will God's help? Now, God's help is always near. This flesh age is a time of chastisement for correction. People think God should be their personal butler. People think God should come down here. Why does God allow all this? And they say, there can't be a God if he allows all this evil in the world, Pastor. God's not running a daycare here. God makes it clear. All the evil in the world has to play itself out. If you want to participate in it, knock yourself out. You got somewhere to go. God will give you somewhere to go because you don't like God's plans, plots, and purposes. You go against them. That's what we have today, is mankind thinks they can govern themselves outside of God's governing authority. And God, like I said, God is not going to come down here and fix everything or start writing checks for $1 million to people. This is a time of humbling, a time of chastisement, and you give thanks for chastisement, as it's written. And God only loves those he chastises because of this. God knows how much affliction each of us needs to humble for the eternity. And it's not getting a check for $1 million. And where's the first place you're going to go? The car dealership, of course. And then you're going to look for a bigger house and more stuff. It's all about self-occupation. This is God teaching us it's time to humble. Look what Paul had to go through to get to where God promised him in Acts 23:11. This guy's on a shipwreck with a bunch of panicking people. And after long abstinence, Paul stood forth in the midst of them and said, Sirs, you should have hearkened unto me. Why didn't you listen to me? And everyone be looking at him like, okay, yeah, and not have loosed from Crete and would have gained this harm. And we wouldn't have had this harm and loss. So this abstinent means like they're scrambling so much, they're not hitting... Here's a nautical term I don't get. Like, why don't you just call it cafeteria? No, they call it like a mess hall. Is that near the helm or the aft or the start? Okay, they're not eating properly is what I'm trying to say. That's what's being said here. They're scrambling to keep this boat and to keep its cargo, floating and to finish their itinerary. If that's a nautical term, I'm not sure. And now I exhort you to be of good cheer, for there shall be no loss of any man's life among you, but the ship's going down, forget about it. Okay, that's what he said. For there stood by me this night the angel of God, whose I am and who I serve, saying, Fear not, Paul. Thou must be brought before Caesar. Like I said in Acts 23, verse 11, Lo, God hath given thee all them that sail with thee. Okay, they're all going to be safe. Wherefore, sirs, be of good cheer, for I believe God that it shall be even as it was told me. Howbeit, we must be cast upon a certain island. The ship's going down. Are you ready? Get over your stuff and things. And look what Paul had to go through. So I don't understand why people think they can skate through tribulation. You're just not looking at planet Earth. You're only looking at yourself. It's self-occupation to not understand what people are going through on planet Earth right now. The oppression, it's absolutely the great tribulation now. 14th night was come, and they were driven up and down in Adria about midnight. The shipmen deemed that they drew near to some country. So we got, the shipmen is the crew, right? They're out there looking, and they sounded and found 20 fathoms, which I don't get. I think that's how deep the water is, because I read Huck Finn when I was a kid. And when they had gone a little further, they sounded again and found it 15 fathoms. And fearing lest they would have fallen upon the rocks, they cast 4 anchors out of the stern and wished for the day. So it was the night. And as the shipmen were about to flee out of the ship, when they had let down the boat into the sea under color, that should be by pretense, as though they would have cast anchors out of the foreship, Paul said unto the centurion and to the soldiers, Except these abide in the ship, they cannot be saved. Cut the anchors, Paul's saying. All right, we're getting thrashed around out here. Then, not the crew, the soldiers cut the ropes of the boat and let her fall. They were listening to Paul. They were believing Paul. And believe me, Paul would have been preaching and teaching the Bible the whole way. And the soldiers knew his background and knew where he was coming from. The soldiers listened to Paul, not the crew. And while the day was coming, Paul besought them to take meat, saying, This afternoon is the 14th day that you have tarried and continued fasting, having taken nothing. Be careful of this word fasting, okay? It has 2 meanings. And we know from our Muslim brothers in Islam during Ramadan, when they fast, it just means you're not eating at the same times. Okay, so they fast during the day and eat at night, I believe, right? And fasting means, okay, not having the same 3 standard meals a day or whatever you eat. It just means, okay, like without food on a steady basis. Or there is fasting like we're supposed to do, where you just don't eat because you appreciate God more and you appreciate how bountiful he is and you're not taking it for granted, and you're supposed to fast. It's one of God's commandments to fast. But here they continued fasting because of this massive panic that they were going down so they weren't sitting in the mess hall, the cafeteria, and having their meals. And it wasn't that they were short of food, because this whole boat was full of wheat. Now, therefore, I pray, take some meat, for this is for your health, and they shall not a hair on your head fall from any of you. And when he had thus spoken, he took bread and gave thanks to God in presence of them all. There you go. Thank you, God, for this food. And when he had broken it, he began to eat. And there were some, and then were they all of good cheer, and they also took some meat. Okay, let's get some food into us, because, boys, you're going for a swim. The boat's going down. That's what Paul said. 276 people here. And when they had eaten enough, they lightened the ship and cast out the wheat into the sea. Okay, there goes all the food now, because this boat is just getting beat up by the waves. They don't have anchors anymore. And when it was day, they knew not the land, but they discovered a certain creek with a shore. They didn't know where they were. Little creek with a shore, like an inlet or a fjord or a bay or a bayou, whatever nautical term means here. Creek, is that bigger than a stream or a brook? Is a river bigger than a... Anyways, they found this estuary or a delta, and they're going to land the ship right in there, okay? That's why I don't have my boating license, because these nautical terms drive me crazy. In the which, yeah, I failed. It's because my dad was trying to help me, and he was in the Navy, and we call him corporal punishment because I can't do anything right, especially in a boat. So I'll stick to a canoe or one of those blow-up rafts. Okay, if it were possible to thrust the ship. Okay, we're going for it. This creek or estuary or sound or billabong. And when they had taken up the anchors, they committed themselves into the sea, loosed the rudder bands, and hoised the saint sail. And we're going for the side. We're going for the shore, the coastal region over there. And falling into a place where two seas met, they ran the ship aground, and the forepart stuck. Okay, the front of the boat, forepart, I don't know what that's called in real life. The helm, aft, I just call it the front, which is a lot easier. And the front of the boat got stuck in the sand, okay? And the back was getting beaten by waves. That's my kind of nautical terminology, but if you like the nautical terminology, which is extremely confusing, we're just painting a picture of a shipwreck here, okay? And the soldiers' counsel was to kill the prisoners. That was their orders, okay? The ship's going down. We're going to kill the prisoners, lest any of them should swim out and escape. No escaping prisoners. That was their orders. But the centurion, their boss, willing to save Paul, kept them from their purpose. You guys let them go, okay? If they can make it to shore, they can make it to shore. And you guys too, right? Swim for it. Go for it. And the rest, some on boards and some on broken pieces of ship, came to pass, and they escaped all safe to land. And that's the greatest thing. They made it there. Now we're almost done the book of Acts, chapter 28. Don't you dare miss it tomorrow, chapter 28. I want to thank you very much for watching. Have yourself a great day, and bye for now.